Well, it is I, Billy, greeting you from across the big pond. Today there are 27 million Americans who claim to have come from Scotland. I'm so American. You can tell it by my voice. And I'm going to follow the path that their brave ancestors took. Lovely to meet you.
You finally met me.
With a cast from around the world that call America home.
Magissimo tutte mute! Viva San Pedro!
From Massachusetts to Nashville, it's 3,000 miles through 10 incredible states. On a trail to all the places you've heard of, but have rarely ever seen. I woke up this morning with the Blue Ridge outside my window. I always wanted to see the Blue Ridge Mountains. This is a tale of families.
My uncle, my dad's brother, had 22 kids.
Never. Framed in unbelievable sights. So it's not real. Your brain won't handle it. To make an epic but rarely taken journey into the surprising heart of America.
Perhaps we could see Murderer's Alley. Got your attention, huh?
Because there never has been a better time to look at where America has come from. Or to find out where it's going next.
Yes!
Yeah!
So what are you waiting for? Come on! I promise you, it's going to be fun.
So, Billy, where are we?
In the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, on the trail of the lonesome pine, in the pale moonshine, our hearts entwine, for she carved her name, and I carved mine, oh June. Like the mountains, I'm blue, like the pines, I am lonesome for you. We're in the back roads of Virginia, Appalachia. I'm in the heart of Dungaree country, on the trail of the Great Scottish Migration. I woke up this morning with the Blue Ridge outside my window. I always wanted to see the Blue Ridge Mountains. We couldn't be luckier. It's always been of interest to me because I'm a banjo player. I've always felt this is where America lives, in the South. It's lovely, a distinct difference happens. There's a great deal more hospitality and friendship.
If you really get right down to it, life is really where it's at. And people, they bypass that looking for big things. And the fellow better learn that the simple things is really where it's at.
How's that for a bit of homespun wisdom to get you in the mood? For a wet drive in the South.
We've got 3 gears, 3 on the tree, as we call it.
This is the only way to do it, though. There's a saying round here that the first thing the English did when arriving in the New World was build a church. The first thing the Germans did was build a barn. And the first thing the Scots-Irish did was make whiskey. Or as they call it here, moonshine. Which gets its name from being brewed illegally by the light of the Appalachian moon.
This is Franklin County, moonshine capital of the world.
Beth Worley isn't kidding. This tiny county in the middle of nowhere really was the moonshine capital of the world. And she should know because her granddaddy was a moonshine kingpin. But he wasn't the only one making hooch round here. Everyone, and I mean everyone, was in the action.
It was something that you grew up with, you know. I mean, my dad and my granddad and all of them made whiskey, you know. I mean, it was just something they did, and most of them drank something too, you know.
So my grandpa Worley learned it from his 2 older brothers.
What did they do when they weren't doing moonshine? Were they farmers or
Farmers.
did they have jobs?
No, that was their job.
That was their job?
Yeah, they had gardens and tried to farm, but you just could not make a living like that.
Yeah. The dense forests and steep mountains around here provided the perfect cover for an illicit industry that at its height was supplying the entire eastern seaboard of America with booze.
Come on in, guys. We'll show you what we've got going on here. And what we use is, in this county, is what you call a submarine type steel. And you know, we'd have as many as 20 or 30 of these, the old man would at one time set up. We were knocking out 12, 13,000 gallons a month.
It was an exciting life. I mean, it was one that once you got into it, was hard to get away from. If you hadn't made around in a month or so, you know, here come my buddy, let's make us a little twist. You got a good place? I think I got a pretty good place. Let's go look at it. You know, so that's all it took.
The scale of the operations up here was jaw-dropping. Each week, thousands upon thousands of gallons of moonshine was pouring out of the mountains. But that brought a whole other level of problems to the county, namely the police. It's lovely to hear someone saying my grandfather was being chased by the law.
It's part of the deal, yeah.
When you go in, it's like this. You can have diamonds on your fingers, gold around your neck, but one thing you can count on is shackles on your feet.
On your feet.
He said, you will go to prison.
We got all three.
But you get used to living that life. It's a rush, man. You can't explain. I get a chill just talking about it. It gets in your blood.
You was outsmarting them, and they was trying to outsmart you all the time, you know? It's kind of like a game.
I'm making liquor, you think, okay, I'm making liquor. That's a liquor charge. It's not. It's about 10 charges.
Yeah.
Possession of liquor, transportation of liquor, possession of raw materials, manufacture.
Charge me and your daddy with an organized crime.
And I always figured they'd come and get me, but they didn't never see me, because I had a pair of pantyhose pulled over my head, you know? Because it was cold and they felt good. And
You have to know how to look at the South. As you drive through back roads of Virginia, you'll see cars and debris scattered in yards and gardens. To the outsider, these look like junk. To the Virginian, they look like spare parts to keep things running. They are industrious, careful and smart, and more fool you to underestimate them.
A lot of these moonshiners like him that were really successful, they made a lot of money. And so he was making the money and he was spending it and he was proud of himself. 1935, my grandpa built a house just with cash money.
For Beth, this house represents everything that is the best of her and her family. And I'm quite honored that she wants to share that with me.
And this right here, this is at this house. That's my daddy and my grandpa.
Well, that's the grandpa there.
Yeah. And my grandpa, boy, he was enjoying his money back in the day because he had gold teeth because he just thought that looked fantastic. And my daddy loved it. He's like, yeah, he was like a gangster. My grandpa, I mean, he would really frown upon that whole hillbilly look of the, you know, no, this was a business, by God, and you were out there and you were making this stuff because you're going to make me some money. But it might be, you know, people say hillbilly around here, or they want to call us hillbillies, and I say, bring it on. That means I'm tough, you know, I'm creative.
I think hillbilly is a great title.
Yeah, and so I own it.
We saw a house last night, a big house, and there was a sign in the garden, and it said, trespassers will be shot, survivors will be shot twice.
We're up front, you know, we just let you know.
The way I look at it, your head, it's about like a bucket or a wheelbarrow or a bed of a truck, anything else. It ain't gonna hold but so much. And a man needs to be careful what he loads it up with, you know? I mean, think about it. You gotta be careful what you, I mean, you be careful what you load it up with because it'll take away from a good thought.
You see, there really is a special kind of Southern genius. It's what the 18th century Virginia wit Randy Miners called the wisdom of simplicity.
You figure out how to live in the moment, hellfire, you can live a life if you can figure that out. And just, and don't worry about it.
To the east of Franklin County lies the state of Maryland, famous throughout the 18th and 19th century for two things: tobacco and slavery. And these pastoral scenes are the surprising backdrops to some of the most astonishing acts of bravery. Because this is where, throughout the 1850s, the incredible Harriet Tubman led 300 slaves to freedom.
She's like the main reason why we have freedom today.
She's an inspiration to everybody.
Can you imagine leading all them people out and then going underground?
It is very important for us to know our history, to know what she did.
It's a story that needs to be told.
Harriet Tubman was a conductor on the Underground Railroad, which you may be surprised to find out was neither a railroad or underground. It was in fact a network of safe houses called stations that formed an escape route for African Americans fleeing slavery. For many, Harriet was the last hope of freedom, but to local art teacher Charles Ross, she's simply Great Auntie Harriet.
I want to think that was in the third or fourth grade when we knew we were related to Harriet Tubman.
Yes.
Just by parents telling us, you know. My grandfather told them, know who you're related to. So he used to say we were related to Donna Ross.
When Harriet was born, nearly half of the population of Maryland were slaves. For anyone, as Harriet did, to escape was remarkable. But to return to the very place she was a slave, to help hundreds of others flee to freedom, that is just awe-inspiring. And these are the very fields, farms and villages that those brave souls, led by Harriet, had to navigate in the dead of night.
I couldn't imagine somebody follow me and it's going to be a matter of life and death. You know, if you're caught, you're dead.
Yes.
And she wasn't going to allow you to turn back and cause everybody else to get caught. So if you with her, you need to be with her.
You can see it in her face. Harriet was as tough as they come, and that's something Charles, as keen his students, shouldn't forget.
A lot of the kids have said, like, well, if I was back there, then I would do this, that, and other. And I said, this is what your mouth is saying today, because you have the freedom of choice today to say pretty much what you want to say.
Yes.
I said, but back then, you had no choice. Fear was put into you to a degree that you wouldn't even really even thought about it. And I tell the kids in school, I say, you know, y'all walk around here in your new shoes, acting like you just have it going on for yourself. You're walking across the ground that people have blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
But for her, it was, I'd rather be dead than to be a slave for the rest of my life.
It's taken a long time for Harriet to get the recognition she deserves. Too long. But there is a place in Maryland where Charles has decided to put that right by painting a mural to a real American hero, Great Aunt Harriet.
One time it was vandalized. Somebody put the N-word whore across her face.
That's unbelievable.
But this has been, it's been 8 years now. And my aunt would come out here and sit and just pull up her chair. I had my chair over here. She talked to everybody.
Yeah, I like that idea. Well,
Yeah.
she was the mouth and you were the hands.
Yeah, exactly. Because she loved being the mouth.
I think you've done a great job.
Thank you.
She would like it.
I think so too.
Do you feel racism is on the rise, or?
I think it's definitely better than it was. But I just think before racism was wearing a mask, and so you didn't know who was and who wasn't. And now people feel a little more bolder in saying what they want to say.
I take my lessons in race from Nina Simone. Mm-hmm. She said, I come from a rather beautiful race with a beautiful culture. Mm-hmm. And I believe that to be true.
Yes. You ever heard a song she sang, Mississippi Goddamn?
Yes.
Alabama's got me so upset. Tennessee makes me lose my rest. But everybody knows about Mississippi, goddamn.
They don't tell you this in school, but when the Europeans first landed in Virginia, they were looking for gold. When they didn't find any, they turned their hands to making their own treasures. How else can you explain Foamhenge? A marvellous yet pointless life-size model of Stonehenge made out of, yes, you guessed it, foam, as are these dinosaurs. And that's just one of the many reasons I love Americans. They are willing to take a reality and make it, if not bigger and better, then dumber and trashier. And I mean that in a positive way, because it brings me to the next stop in my trail. About an hour out of Richmond, Virginia. Somewhere off Route 64 lies a field full of glorious and dumb giant heads. Some presidents. They've been dumped here. They used to be at President's Park in Williamsburg, Virginia, and it closed down and they dumped them here. Kind of creepy. We've got George Washington, who's the father of America, the first president. Abe Lincoln over here. That's him with a hole in the back of his head, standing gazing into the middle distance. By some estimates, 75% of the presidents of America have Scottish ancestry, including Ronald Reagan and Teddy Roosevelt. The guy with the moustache at the back there, after whom the teddy bear was named. We have George W. Bush lurking behind the bush there. And yes, the current Tangerine-in-Chief, Donald Trump, whose likeness has fortunately not found its way here yet. And here we have Andrew Jackson, a nasty piece of work. He had 300 slaves. He also was in charge of the American troops at the Battle of New Orleans, for they trounced the British. Oh, they fired our guns and the British kept a-coming, though there wasn't as many as there was a while ago. It's a song by Jimmy Driftwood, made famous with Lonnie Donegan. I wonder if they all get together at night and argue. And that's your history lesson for today. Goodbye, children. On the borders of Virginia, Tennessee, and North Carolina, in the very heart of the South, as the world lurched from one world war to another, songs started to tumble from the mountains. Scottish laments and Irish jigs that had been fermenting for over a century. Had transformed into something that no one else even knew existed. And then in 1927, A.P. Carter led his family out of the mountains. This was the moment country music was born. But it was the man in black, Johnny Cash, who learned to play the guitar listening to the Carters on a radio that loved them the most. So much so, he married their daughter June and became part of the fold. I was in Australia and I was in Canberra airport and I had my auto harp with me, and Johnny Cash and Maybelle came in. They went into a different room and I could hear them talking and laughing. And I was dying to go in with my auto harp and get it signed. But I panicked at the last minute.
But you know, they wouldn't have minded a bit.
I'm in Poor Valley, where the street signs are named after Carter family songs, and I couldn't be happier. I'm sitting in Johnny Cash's rocking chair, talking to the keeper of the family flame, Rita Carter. I think he's wonderful. And I'm doing it in the very cabin where our grandfather A.P. was born. A.P., the man who gave the world country music. So what kind of man was A.P. Carter?
Well, to me, he was grandpa first.
Yes.
And performer second.
That's great.
But everything he did was done with so much love. He was a wonderful Christian man.
You can hear it in his voice.
He hung the moon, yeah.
That's lovely.
They laid the groundwork for country music. There was no country music. There was just, they called their music at that time hillbilly music, and he hated that.
Did he?
He hated the term hillbilly music. He did not want to be classified as a hillbilly.
Poor Valley is remote, even by today's standards. You have to want to make the trip to get here. But at the turn of the century, this place may as well have been the moon, and life was very different.
In the mountains, you had to be self-sufficient.
Yes.
You know, there were wild animals. You meted out justice on your own. There wasn't much else to do. I know my dad's family, somebody didn't do what they wanted, they just shot them and went on. And they didn't get prosecuted for it.
Really?
Heck no. And they made whiskey legally and illegally, and my granddad was appalled that my mom married into their family because he did not drink.
So I stopped 35 years ago.
Well, I never started because
I started very well.
Oh, you did? You got off to a running start?
I had a few equals. I was good. I was a gold medal sprinter.
Yeah, all right.
The Carters' fingerprints are all over the valley. Generations reside in the local graveyard at Mount Vernon Church, less than a mile from the Carter home. It's nice to be surrounded by so many relatives.
When I was growing up, it was amazing. I used to have so many that I thought I would always have them in the hundreds.
Yes.
And now I'm getting to be close to the oldest generation.
Yeah, I am too.
And it's a little bit scary.
It's kind of weird, isn't it? But the Carter legacy is timeless. The songs have been covered and transformed by thousands of artists in countless ways. And the original recordings, scratchy and distant, have never been out of print.
It was all brought from your country.
Yes.
And Ireland and England.
And Northern Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a breed of people called Scots-Irish who settled in Northern Ireland. A lot of the music comes from them. They came here.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the Irish have a clog dancing that's very similar. Do you know they used to have Irish wakes for people who were still alive?
No, I did not know that.
When they were leaving Ireland to go to America, they knew they would never see them again.
So they had a wake.
So they had a
them.
wake before they left.
Well, you just taught me something.
American wakes, they call them.
Really?
Yeah. So they would get drunk and sing songs.
Well, they still get drunk and sing songs.
Absolutely. Dancing and drinking, angels and demons, two common themes in country music, here and at home. And it was Johnny Cash, the most famous of all the Carters, that probably personifies those elements.
My mother adored him. When he would come to play, she would say, my friend Johnny Cash is coming out. And she'd say, he's going to do an electric concert, but we can't really help that. He was plugged in when we met him. And he was plugged in when we met him.
That's lovely.
But in a great way.
Well, I'm proud to spend some time in his chair.
Well, I'm sure he'd be proud that you did.
This has been one of the great days of my life, to come and spend some time where the Carter family grew up and got married and had families and sang their songs. They mean so much to me. They've meant so much to me in my life. I wouldn't marry an old man. He is the reason why. He always chews tobacco and he never zips his fly. Meeting Rita is just, to me it's like meeting Elvis. You're meeting the real deal. It's just a joyous occasion. Back in the 18th century, when America was being settled, nobody wanted West Virginia, except the Scots. Some say it was because the landscape and climate were similar to the Highlands. But the truth is, it was only the Scots that were bullheaded enough to take on living in the mountains. And then they discovered the hills were bursting at the seams with coal, and everyone got rich.
This town was booming. Each miner had an average of 8 to 10 kids. My uncle, my dad's brother, had 22 kids.
Never.
He had 3 sets of twins. 3 sets of twins.
Don, just like his father and uncles, was a coal miner, and Mount Hope was their home.
They'd be making good money back then. A lot of millionaires.
No one thought the good times would end, and then, well, they did. The coal bubble burst, and things haven't been going very well since.
The rain's gonna come and go all day, I think. There's nothing we can do about that. That's God's work. It's only water. Ain't that right, Billy?
Absolutely.
Amen.
It must be weird when your town starts closing down.
Yes, it's not good at all because as the business closed, people leave. People leave. Today, we don't even have a school. As of this year, the elementary school just above my house closed down.
Gee.
We have not much going on in this town anymore. I loved coal mining, and I really miss it to this day. I worked there for 23 years. Graduated high school on a Friday. Monday morning, I start working the coal mine.
Really?
Yeah. So I worked in the coal mine for 2 weeks. I went and bought me a new car. Man, I thought you couldn't tell me nothing. I made $50 a day when I first started, 1975. Made $50 a day.
That's good money.
Yeah, it was good then. It really was. It was good money then.
Do you miss the camaraderie?
The camaraderie was something that just hard to explain because the guys was just like your family.
At its peak, there were over 150,000 men employed in the mines in West Virginia. Now there's just over 10,000. But for those that did the time underground, the ties are forever, which is why Don joins his old friends once a month for a fish fry at the local mine.
I want to welcome Billy here to the mine. This is our coal mining family here.
How you doing? How you doing?
I'm Scottish. I heard there was some free food going.
Exactly. Right here was our chef.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just help yourself. Old Leroy's, he claims to be the best cook in West Virginia, but that's a matter of opinion, right, Will?
I got plenty of fish, tilapia breaded.
Oh, I like tilapia.
Got some good coleslaw and macaroni salad.
Yeah, Leroy's the big cook and
I love
the
doing
biggest
it.
troublemaker we got around here.
No.
He says you're not as good a cook as you think you are.
Well, they might complain, but they always eat it up, so. See, I learned to do a lot of this cooking underground in the coal mine.
Did you?
I used to fix deer meat, chicken livers, fried green tomatoes, fix them all in the coal mine.
I didn't know you could do that.
See, I had a microwave oven, and I had a DC heater.
Yeah.
Then I had a 30-cup percolator coffee pot.
So there's no flames?
No flames. The mine boss, he said, as long as you in here cooking, we making money.
Mining, fraught with danger, is one of those jobs that bonds men in a way that is almost impossible to describe. And that's where the love of the job comes in.
Now, I was brought up in the mines. I remember as a little boy, my brother set me on a sack of dynamite. That's the quietest I've ever been in my life. He told me if I moved, it was going to blow me to kingdom come.
But you know, it is a dangerous occupation.
I was on a mine rescue team, so when the mines would catch on fire, we would go running in, and they'd say, "Are you crazy? Everybody else is running out."
That's hell. The mines were hard places to work, and yet they were also arenas for everyday acts of heroism, laughter and friendship. And ultimately, that's what the men miss most.
We've lost so many miners here in the last probably 10 years.
Some of these guys are still fairly young, too young to retire,
but really too old to start over somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? Who's going to hire you when you get 50 years old?
When you've done it all your adult life, it's difficult to change.
When you figure out how to do it, you come back here so you can put all these mines back open,
Absolutely.
these miners back to work.
We'd like to give you this hard hat. You got your name and the back of the Expedition Coal Mine. It's a white hat. White hat is the boss. There you go.
Where's my shovel?
Brilliant. I'm glad you finished. I've got a shift to finish.
There you go.
Every year, during the last Monday of May, Americans remember those who have served on Memorial Day. There's veterans, bikers, Corvette owners, and a lot of tartan that harks back to the original Scottish settlers that formed regiments here, and everyone pays their respects by joining a parade. Americans really love a parade. And once everybody leaves, the graveyards become a sea of stars and stripes. Over 58,000 men lost their lives throughout the entire Vietnam War. But America is now in a different kind of war. And the death toll is staggering. 90,000 in the last 2 years alone. And the front line is right here in West Virginia, in the very place it all started. I know nothing about the drug thing.
I'm glad you don't.
I've smoked a little dope, but I've never been deeply involved in it. I don't shake because I'm needing a fix. I shake because I've got Parkinson's disease. 2 pills are good, but 3 is better. That's what they said about the painkillers that led to America's opioid crisis. They were prescribed to thousands of Americans for anything from broken bones to whiplash to back pain, even though they were every bit as addictive as heroin. And right in the centre of the state where it all started, the Southern Fellowship Home in the once prosperous town of Beckley, run by Lily, a cat lover who can't resist a way for a stray.
I moved in here about 27 years ago, and then I just never really moved out.
27 years ago?
About, yes.
That's serious.
So all of the people that work here now lived here at one point and went through the house here. So you've got the stern one, and I'm the easy one and say yes to everything.
How you doing?
He's the
Good, how are you
musician.
doing? Doing great.
They're
Doing
my
great.
dream team. Look at them.
Weirdest looking dream team I've ever seen. And is it most of you opioid?
Yeah. When I first started working here, it was mostly alcoholism, and I'm gonna say like a few years afterwards, crack, cocaine, some heroin, and now really we see almost all opioid addicts.
Make no mistake, this is a middle and working class crisis. The scale of addiction is industrial. There are now over 1.5 million Americans addicted to medical and illegal opioids.
I heard that overdoses are the second leading cause of death right now.
And the numbers are terrifying.
It is. It's very...
It's higher than the Vietnam War. It's a national tragedy. And then I read that the makers of the drugs are opening shelters.
Yeah.
That seems a bit off.
Yeah, they also provide drugs to get off the drugs.
Oh, that's handy.
Yeah, that works.
My son has a problem, and he's in AA and NA, and he told me when he went to the detox place, some kids were being let out, and they were back on the stuff before they got to the railway station. Yeah. It's just so powerful. And people who don't know about it say Well, why do you take it? Just say
Just
no.
stop. Yeah.
Just stop and you'll be better.
Yeah.
Duh. It's extraordinary. So you do grand work.
This is one of the best things that's ever happened to me. I've learned more here in 17, 18 days about myself than I have the 39 years that I've been living. So I appreciate it here.
That's great. Because anytime they speak about this opioid stuff, they talk about it like people are losers. Yeah. And they're dying all over the place. They never talk about this. Yeah. About people pulling themselves up and getting on with it. Well, that was remarkable. That was kind of spiritual experience. Thanks to Lily. She was amazing. Those people are well on the way to be mended. The people who make these pills and the doctors who distributed them, they've a lot to answer for. My journey is coming to an end. Nashville, Tennessee. The Scottish fingerprints on the state and city can be seen most evidently during their annual Highland Games. But it's in the music that you can hear it best. Nashville is a city where everyone slings a guitar for a living. And if you want to stand out from the crowd, you need to know one name. Because as we know, all the greats are known by one name. Elvis, Prince, Madonna, and Manuel, the designer who has dressed all of them.
Billy the man.
Hello.
How are you, young man?
How do you do, Manuel?
I'm better than looks.
That's great. It's nice to see you working.
This is what I do when I'm doing nothing.
Born in Mexico in 1933, Manuel first made a name for himself in LA, where he put the Rat Pack in suits and James Dean in jeans. For that alone, he will go to heaven. But it was in the 60s, working alongside the fashion icon Nudie Cohn, that his artistic flair earned him the name the Rembrandt of Rhinestone. Manuel's cosmic cowboys include Elton John, Robert Redford, and of course, Glenn Campbell.
I love all my pieces.
You can spot your designs a mile away.
Sometimes they scare me, you know.
And I love the breadth of the design that you do, like for Dwight and Marty are ridiculously different.
Of course, you know, what happens is like, they are all individuals and unique, you know.
Yeah.
And they own them and they feel great when they wear them, you know.
Who made Elvis's gold suit?
Right here, sir.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you ever worry that they might be disappointed?
I don't really worry. I'm very secure, but some man asked me for a John Wayne shirt.
Yes.
So I made it for him. And then he puts the shirt on, looks in the mirror, looks back and says, I don't see John Wayne. I said, but I don't see John Wayne either.
Did you say that?
Yes.
Oh, well done. Was it you who decided that Johnny Cash should be in black?
Not really. It was kind of an idea that I had. And he had an idea for suits because he was really getting to be famous. He says, I want like maybe 9 suits. And I made him all black. And he fell in love with his clothes.
I don't blame
I
him.
remember calling me in a very stern form and says, well, you know, I want you to make me at least two suits a week because, you know, things are getting really better. I said, good. He says, by the way, the color is no longer a question.
I love Elton John's suit.
I know.
The wilder you get, the happier I become.
Yes.
Because it's a big event to go and see somebody you love.
That's right.
And so you want them to look as big as you feel.
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger in Scotland,
Mm-hmm.
I went to see a guitarist and he had purple socks on. And I thought, where can I get socks like that?
Oh pop, oh wop, oh bye, oh wop, oh pop, oh bye, oh wop.
Manuel was just astonishing. I've looked at his stuff for years, and I've gazed in his window in Los Angeles. He's such a talented man, I must get a suit. Manuel dressed giants, Cash, Lennon, and of course Elvis Presley, pictured here in the White House with Richard Nixon, who has a surprising connection with my final destination. In 1974, Tricky Dicky took to the stage of the brand new Grand Ole Opry Theatre on the outskirts of Nashville and blew the doors off. The Opry is the alpha and omega of country music, the place where singers come to become legends, waiting for their time in the hallowed centre of the stage.
First time you just step foot into it, you kind of get a rush of blood to the head.
You have to be invited to perform on this stage.
The first time on the Opry, petrifying. Hey, petrifying.
Even when the house lights are down and the crowds are all gone, it is the country music equivalent of a coming out ball, which would make me, in this moment, the oldest debutante in the South. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, by and by? This spot, front and centre, is the end of the line that connects me to 1,000 years of Scottish history in America. I was standing on the corner. This is where all those songs and dances from my homeland mixed with so many other styles from all around the world and turned into something else, something wonderful. To take my mother away. And that's when America works, when its people and its cultures add up to more than the sum of its parts. By and by, there's a better. The Carter family made this song famous in the 30s, and it's been sung 1,000,000 times since. Will the circle be unbroken? But its message of unity never diminishes. And that's what I hope for. For all those Americans, I wish them all that unity and more. In the sky, Lord, in the sky. Goodbye, children.